Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is first impressions by Kilian. So I have some little samples here. Some of these are exclusives, so we're going to go through each one. First one being Eternal Oud. This is just first impressions. If there's any that you would like me to review fully sooner than later, let me know in the comments, but this is just a general first impression to say if I like them and generally kind of what they give me. Okay, so I don't actually know the notes of any of these, but this smells like I get rose, I get oud. It's actually maybe slightly boozy, maybe there's an alcoholic note like cognac, or if there's not, there's just an illusion of a slight booziness. But it's definitely, I would say, a rose oud. It's okay, the oud isn't too barnyard or skanky, but it does have more of a Middle Eastern kind of vibe. It's not too sweet, it's not too intense. I think it's blended quite nicely. This one's not bad, but there's so many rose ouds. To be honest, this one doesn't jump out at me as being particularly amazing, but it's certainly not bad. So Eternal Oud. Okay, the next one is Pearl Oud. So I have no idea, like I say, any of the notes on this, so I'm kind of doing it blind. But I think in a way that's better for first impressions because I'm not tainted by notes in front of me. Oh wow, I can smell this. You definitely get the oud, but there was like a blast of freshness that felt like iris in the opening. The oud is more barnyard and skanky than Eternal Oud. This is a little bit more funk, but not too much. But it is a slightly dirtier oud. But it felt like maybe a note of iris or violet in the opening. Without knowing what's in it, I would say maybe violet or iris. There's some kind of softness and a slight freshness there, but it's not citrus freshness. It's like a floral kind of a freshness, with a slightly more skanky kind of dirty oud. I'm not getting too much else really. Nothing too much else is jumping out at me at the moment for that one, so we'll go on to the next. Both of those I think are okay, probably not ones I would buy from a quick first impression, but we'll see how they develop. I'll come back to them at the end. The next one is Back to Black. Okay, I immediately get the honey and the tobacco. I mean, I know some of the notes in Back to Black. I remember reading, just from my own knowledge, I know there's a note of cherry, and I do get kind of a fruity, kind of slightly cherry vibe with honey and tobacco. To be honest, the first time I smelled Back to Black I didn't like it. I found it quite cloying and sickly, and it really wasn't my taste. Smelling this again on paper, probably 7 or 8 months since I last smelled this, I like it a lot more than I did the first time. But it is just a little bit too... I still find it a little bit sickly sweet with the honey note. I think I know what the honey note is. It's a synthetic honey. Yeah, I'm pretty 95% sure I recognise the material used as the honey note. But yeah, it's maybe a little bit sickly for me. Okay, moving on, we have Royal Leather. And I remember smelling this one, like I say, maybe 7 or 8 months ago, and it's smelling of Play-Doh. Okay, so at first I get a slightly animalic, dirty kind of leather. The leather has kind of dirty tones to it. It's not like a luxurious smooth leather or a suede. This is a little bit pungent, a little bit dirty, kind of dirty tones to the leather. But there is this almondy, Play-Doh sweet powdery vibe over the top of that. The leather note is familiar to me as well as a synthetic that I own. I would say this has a little bit of butylquinoline or butylquinoline secondary or whatever it's called. It's a leather synthetic that's quite animalic, kind of a dirty kind of leather. I might be wrong, that's just the initial kind of memory that it triggers is of smelling that kind of synthetic, of this kind of pungent, quite strong, dirty leather. But like I say, mixed with a Play-Doh vibe. Bit of a strange combination. It does smell a little bit like the Guerlains that use that's the same note, which kind of smell a little bit like Play-Doh. Not one that I find appealing personally. I think the leather note is not my favourite. It smells, although leather is a synthetic element in perfume, apart from if you're using real castoreum. Leather in general is a synthetic component, but it feels like that one's too familiar. Like a lot of leather fragrances I can't identify as to kind of what they are or how they've been made. They're materials that I'm not familiar with. This one feels like it is familiar to me, so it kind of puts me off, but it's mixed with that kind of powdery Play-Doh, which smells a little bit unusual to me. Next up is Lemon in Zest, and luckily I cut exactly the amount of strips that I need. This one is nice. It's bright, refreshing, summery lemon. It reminds me a little bit of Mancera's Lemon Lime, but I would say a little bit less sweet. It doesn't smell too much like floor cleaner. A lot of the time lemon in fragrances just reminds me of cleaning products. I don't quite get that from this. I do think it's quite nice, and it does remind me of lemon lime. If I were to say any differences, I would say this is slightly less synthetic smelling and slightly less sweet. From a first impression, I like that, and I would wear it as a summer fragrance. Yeah, first impression, bright, refreshing, zingy kind of lemon. It's quite nice. Okay, and the last one is Vodka on the Rocks, which is another one of the exclusive fragrances. Well, it doesn't smell to me like a boozy kind of a fragrance personally. Actually, maybe a little bit, but not overly. There's really not much to describe in this fragrance in words. This is definitely one you have to experience, because there's not really much to describe. And I do kind of get a vibe of what they're trying to do. I don't think it smells like vodka particularly, or like a hard spirit, but I kind of get the impression maybe of a sparkly kind of summer cocktail, maybe just like in the air a little bit, like maybe vodka and lemonade with ice cubes, and you just get a waft of it as you're walking past a pool or something. It's got kind of vibes of it. I actually don't mind it. I think it smells quite nice, but it's soft. It doesn't feel like a strong fragrance. This feels like you could spray quite a lot and it probably wouldn't project much, and you could be quite liberal with it, from a first impression at least. Very kind of hard to describe, but it feels more like a summertime spring fragrance for the daytime. Could be casual or dressed up for most occasions, and definitely unisex. I don't see it as a man or a woman. One you kind of have to experience. I don't think I can do a good job of explaining this in words to you to give you a good picture. There's really not a whole lot to describe properly, but it's okay. I actually don't mind it. I would test that and review it. That's it from the little pouches, but we do have a couple more. Bear with me and I'll be back in a second. So we're back. Just had to cut some more test strips. The next one I'm going to do is Straight to Heaven. I smell what feels to me like oak wood. It's dark and kind of woody, but a slight undertone of a sweetness, but it reminds me of either oak wood or aloes wood. This is quite nice. Let me spray it again. In fact, let me do it on skin. This smell is really familiar, maybe even spikenard. It's kind of a dark, woody, earthy, not quite vetiver, but like a rooty kind of a rooty smell. It's reminding me of a couple of things, a little bit like spikenard, a little bit like aloes wood, and a darker wood, more like oak wood, rather than something like cedar. This is actually very nice. I like this. It smells now, I think there's a little bit of patchouli. There's an earthiness in the background. It's not particularly green, but I get an earthiness or a dirtiness that reminds me of patchouli. But with this kind of a very dark, rooty kind of a wood. Okay, I would go out on a limb and say that's my favourite from everything that I've just tested. I'm actually not a fan of patchouli, and I can definitely smell patchouli. It is there. Oh, it's coming even stronger now. I'm not a fan of patchouli, but the way it's blended here with other things, and it feels like there's a lot of dark wood, is quite nice. Depending how much the patchouli comes out more as it develops, maybe that'll put me off. But from a first impression, I like it. I especially like the opening. I thought the opening was really, really nice. This is different. Yeah, my favourite from those so far. I'm definitely going to review that because I do like that. Okay, and the last few are from here. Just as full disclosure, these all were sent to me for free, apart from Straight to Heaven. I did pay for that myself. By Kilian, a very generous, friendly company. If you're a fellow reviewer, if you give them an email, I'm sure they'd be generous enough to send you some samples to review. They do seem to be very kind. They were extremely generous the first time that I got these a long time ago. They actually sent me these travel things that are pretty big. This is how I discovered Sacred Wood, is that they sent me, I still have some. Here you go. I have that much Sacred Wood spare. Obviously I bought myself a full bottle after reviewing it because I love it. But I can pour this in my bottle when I've finished my bottle and have a bit more. Amber Oud, I think I've done a review on. It's a rich, boozy amber vanilla. There's not much oud in there, but it's very cozy, and it's one of my favourite Kilians. I think it's very, very nice. More of a winter fall fragrance, super cozy, but the performance was average, kind of 5, pushing 6 hours at the most. I would say really 5 hours longevity, modest projection. But it's very nice. I would consider buying it in the future, but it wasn't an immediate kind of, like I must have it. I do have a few vanilla kind of fragrances. But the last one we're going to do, which I haven't reviewed, is Sweet Redemption. And I'm just going to smell this from... Okay, I have no idea what the notes are, but it's floral and it's sweet. I mean, at a guess, I would say maybe the orange blossom, maybe ylang ylang. There's a smooth kind of a floral sweetness, but also a freshness, which reminds me of orange blossom. This one feels more feminine, but I would consider it unisex. It just leans more feminine. Again, one that's very hard to describe in words. It's fresh, kind of floral, slightly sweet without being a particularly sweet fragrance. I think I get kind of a clean orange blossom and kind of a mixed kind of a floral. That's as best as I can do. It feels like quite a compact blend. Like there's nothing really that sings as you can say, oh, I get this in the opening, this and this. It feels like it merges together as more of a singular kind of experience rather than individual notes that you could reel off. But I quite like it. I would say it's slightly more mature, not quite, a teenage fragrance or early 20s. This is more maybe 25, 30 and up. It has a little bit more maturity to it and a feminine quality, but quite nice. Sacred Wood, obviously, I've reviewed, and it is my favourite from by Kilian. It's just pure sandalwood. That's it. We'll go back and do a quick recap on them to see if my opinions have changed. The patchouli's coming out more in this. In what's it called? Straight to Heaven. Oh no, I've gone off it. I can smell cashmerean. This definitely has cashmerean in, and that ruins it for me. Oh, that's really disappointing. Clear as day, I can smell cashmerean and patchouli. The cashmerean wrecks it for me. I can't enjoy that because I can just smell the synthetic cashmerean. Yeah, that has disappointed me actually, because the opening was superb. I thought the opening was fantastic. It smelled really good. I loved the dark, rooty kind of wood. It's a bit more exotic and unusual. Gave me vibes of spikenard and aloes wood and oak wood. It was dark and rich and rooty and woody. But yeah, I can definitely smell cashmere. Okay, going back to Eternal Oud. Hasn't changed at all. It smells like rose and oud, and it smells pleasant. It's not bad, but it doesn't. I mean, there's so much competition with that genre of fragrance that really doesn't stand out to me as being, wow, that's different to all the others. Okay, this one is Pearl Oud. No, it's not. It's back to black. Ignore me. It still smells of honey and tobacco. Maybe the tiniest bit of cherry. I definitely like it more than I did the first time I experienced it. And actually the sickliness has toned down. It's not quite as sickly now. It's been on the strip for a while. I would go as far to say as I like that. I think I will definitely give that one a shot and review it properly and test it on my skin. I didn't test it originally just because like my first thoughts were that I didn't like it. It was too sickly sweet. But I'm appreciating it more coming back to it months and months later. Okay, this one, Royal Leather. Again, it smells like that very... In fact, let me get the bottle of and just compare and see if I can pin it down. Yeah, I think it's this. I thought it was. Okay. My nose is telling me that it uses some of this butylquinoline secondary. It's made by Givaudan. It is. I was hoping it would say some of the characteristics on the front, but it doesn't. But it is a more of an old school dirty kind of leather, but it's mixed with a lot of Play-Doh. But the leather note is not really my cup of tea. Okay, next one is Lemon and Zest. Smells exactly the same. Refreshing, zingy lemon. Really not much to describe, but nice for the summer. And Pearl Oud. This is a lot more barnyard now. The oud is definitely a dirtier variety of oud. So this definitely does have barnyard fecal undertones to the oud. So you need to be a little brave to pull this one off. And what I was smelling in the opening of possibly iris or violet, that kind of floral element has kind of faded, and it's more just singular, kind of a more dirty variety of oud that is not for everybody. I think you need to have more of an acquired taste to appreciate those darker ouds. Going back to Vodka on the Rocks, still very hard to describe. Maybe slightly even salty, but it does have this kind of general freshness, but it has a dry quality. Like, there's a dryness to the freshness. It makes your mouth turn into a desert, like super dry. It's almost like that, like it feels like it's a drying kind of quality, like it needs moisture. But in a kind of a clean, fresh way. Unusual to describe, really. Kind of one that you have to smell yourself to get a vibe of, really. That's very difficult to describe in words. That's it. Hope you enjoyed the first impressions. I will review, from those as a first impression, I would like to review Lemon and Zest, Back to Black. At the moment, maybe just those two. If you would like me to review a specific one in depth, let me know in the comments and I will do that. I will probably get round to reviewing them all eventually. But I mean, just for, you know, in the distant future, I'll review some quicker than others. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you again in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.